you know, they come home and there's cat poop or like a hairball on their pillow and they go, ugh. What's up, you guacky molos of the internet? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and I just recently learned, according to the Great British Baking Show, that that's how you pronounce guacamole. It's guacky molo, and I've also started peeling all my avocados with a potato peeler. So that's what I do now. I'm a potato peeling guacamole man. I'm sorry, guacky molo man. Anyway, I just saw that, so it's kind of funny. Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today we are going to be doing we're going to be analyzing and reacting to, and whatever the heck you want to call it, another patron pick. So our patrons every month get to vote on a video for me to react to and analyze. And sometimes I've heard them before, sometimes I haven't. That's just the name of the game, and it's a lot of fun. If you're new to the channel, I myself am a metal vocalist. I'm in a band called Kardashev. We've got some releases. We're on Metal Blade. That's cool. Check it out if you want to. If not, that's fine as well. And I myself am a vocal coach. Full-time, I teach people how to create crazy metal vocals, you know, stuff like that, safely and efficiently for years and years to come, helping them achieve their vocal goals, all that good stuff. Now, we take the reaction format here. We pause, we break it down, we talk, we analyze, we have a good time. So that's what we're going to do here. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments below. Share it with your friends. Pull out your phone at your fondue parties and say, hey, everybody, let's awkwardly stand in a loud environment. Let me show you this video. Don't you love when people do that? And then if you really love the content, you can check us out on Patreon. Patreon gets you access to our Discord server, which is a lot of fun. We do listening events every Friday night. We have karaoke events. It's been crazy. Me and my business partner, Alex, who kind of well, Alex a lot, run those events. We've both been pretty busy. Me with a new baby and him with some cats. There's a joke in there. If you know, you know. There's a joke in there. But beyond that, let's go ahead. Let's do it. We're going to check out Signs of the Swarm, Death Whistle. And I'm excited. And I'll tell you why I'm excited before I do this. Because I met Dave, the vocalist, the last time they came through town. And it's always nice when you know that the vocalist, I mean, I've only have the one interaction with him, but it's always easier to enjoy music when you know that at least the members of the member you're listening to is a rad dude. I met Dave. We had a long conversation, just super cool, super chill guy, great live. Like, let's talk about it. You know how sometimes you have a vocalist who they sound great in studio, live not so much? Nah, Dave sounds, I'm sorry, freaking great live. Beyond that, let's go ahead, let's talk technique. Let's go, here it is, Signs of the Swarm, Death Whistle. That's all I know. Okay, that's a good spot. So I have heard this song before. It's been a minute. But anyways, so first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the song itself. So one thing that will always at least hook me as a listener of metal is dissonant chords, ambience, and atmospheric, just like an atmospheric ambient focus, and anything down tempo. Right. And so the beginning, we have that like beautiful dissonant chord that we hear. And it's hitting all those points. So automatically I'm like, ooh, give me that. I was a really big fan of that era of deathcore. Now, like symphonic deathcore is getting really, really popular. That's cool. Not as much my jam, especially when you can really tell that the samples are not real strings. But hey, that's fine. It's just my opinion. Now let's talk about vocals. One thing I find very interesting about Dave as a vocalist is that he works from a point of a lot of muffling, right? So yeah, we could talk about false chord and we could talk about fry, but sometimes I want to talk about more than just those foundational things. So let's talk a little bit about the muffle. It's really weird, but it sounds really cool. Dave actually, as far as just like depth of tone, is one of my favorites, right? One of my favorites. Now, here's why it's weird. Normally, and for everyone learning, for all of my students, they know this, and for anyone who's out there self-teaching, we want big open resonant space, right? And yeah, it's to make the tone sound better. Absolutely. It's to make the tone sound better. You know, if I'm singing, you know, and I'm like, nah, right? Nice, big, open, soft palate up. You've heard all these things before. Soft palate up, jaw dropped, hanging on a hinge, sort of back, right? Now, if I do that again, but everything's kind of closed up and muffled, right? Number one, it doesn't sound as good. Number two, on that higher note, I did feel that I had to give it a little bit more gas than I normally would. Obviously, these are both quiet, like the wide open embouchure and the closed embouchure meaning shape and posture of our mouth. These things were not super noticeable, but I felt them. I felt that difference, right? Now, let's take that and let's put it into a scream. One thing that's really important to remember is that when you're doing metal vocals, the majority of the time, it's basically amplifying whatever is there, good technique or bad, right? So if you're quiet singing voice, like let's say you're singing Bon Iver or Sufjan Stevens, if you've got a little bit of incorrect positioning with your vocal cords, if you've got a little bit of strain, that can definitely have some consequences. Of course, a light breathy tone can still give you vocal nodules, but at the same time, you may not notice it as immediately. With screams, if we are squeezing here and we're creating too much pressure, we're going to feel it. We're going to notice it, right? So the majority of the time we want to be open, not just to make our tone sound good, but to avoid unnecessary pressure and to avoid causing the turbulence of the air to do things that we don't want it to do. Now, that being said, you can learn how to balance that, right? You can scream. Like one of my favorite things to do is to do high screams with grit teeth, right? Which technically is not the technique you want to do. Normally when you do a high scream, you want to be nice and open. Right? You want to be open, but you can also like, right? And the way that you can mitigate that is by really focusing on opening up in the back, right? Really focusing on opening up in the back. So Dave has a lot of muffle. I feel like if he was going to be talking, right? Let's say he was ordering a pizza, right? And he was using this same oral posture with the pizza, he would be like this.
I'd like a pepperoni and pizza, please, with anchovies on the side. Leave off the pineapple, but nobody actually cares about pineapple on pizza as much as they pretend to.
Right? Like it'd probably sound like that. And because he's making that work with a balance of airflow and without overly squeezing on his vocal anatomy, it works. Although there are some times throughout Signs of the Swarm, it's not super common. I've heard it once here. You may hear it again, where we hear his voice almost crack or break. Right, the scream kind of has like this little, like for all the people, with vocal development and anatomy like mine, you remember this moment. Hey, do you want to go to the prom with me? I mean, do you want to go to the prom? Damn it, right? That crack. Sometimes you can hear that very subtly, and that can happen. There are multiple reasons why that can happen when screaming, but that can happen if you have incorrect pressure, if you have too much pressure pushing down. So, I'm talking a lot, but this is good information. One way that you can make that work is by blowing a little bit extra on your screams. So if I was to say like, I want a pepperoni pizza versus I want a pepperoni pizza, you hear I'm kind of going while I'm doing that. Expulsing a little bit of air can help. It does kind of hamper the longevity of your scream, but it also sounds really cool, right? That sounds really cool. So if I take like a normal low and I go like, or I'm sorry, now I'm just going to put I'm going to go while I do it. Ooh, there we go. Sounds a little bit different, right? Versus, you can hear that difference there. We're going to leave that voice crack in. We're going to leave that voice crack in the video. Anyway, so a lot of stuff there. Number one, interesting that he screams a little bit of muffle. Number two, some of the way that you can mitigate that is kind of just by going like while you scream. Not easy to do. I don't do it a lot, as you can hear, but it can be cool. It can sound really neat. Hard to do on your highs, depending on what kind of high you're doing. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Hear that? Low voice crack. Right there. Also, just in case anybody's wondering, I'm not pointing out the voice cracks to, bring attention to flaws in performance. Because first of all, voice cracks in screaming can actually sound pretty cool. Johnny Davey is a really good example of this. Job for a cowboy. Listen, I got a newborn. I'm not sleeping. Y'all are going to have to give me some grace here. He is 12 days old today. Good job, little Evan. You're doing it. But so it's not to be like, ooh, he messed up, right? Because listen, if you've ever listened to my band Kardashev, you'll know that there's a flat note on a song here, or, a scream might crack for me as well there too. But it's to kind of show the results of airflow. It's to show what happens. And it's kind of to sort of bring some humanity to the process as well. Also, I don't know who this is supposed to be in this video, but I absolutely love this costume. I don't know what it is, but I love it. Let's keep going. You notice how nice those highs come in because they are open and there's no muffle, but the mids and lows are more closed and muffled. Like that, I love that. I think that, those are things that we as metal vocal lovers hear. Sometimes you have metal vocal lovers. Whoa. Hey, everybody, I'm married. Calm down. That's just kidding. But a lot of times people who aren't into metal, they're like, it just sounds the same. But all of us, right, we hear those subtle nuances. And so I really appreciate when a metal vocalist does that. And I think that comes across really, really well. I want to talk about the muffling just one more moment, because I think it sounds so cool. I want to show you a way you can practice it, right? So at home, you can kind of breathe out with your clean voice. You can kind of just say sue, 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 but you can breathe it out. Sue, 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 sue. Sue, 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 sue. Right? Now, notice how all of your air isn't leaving at once. Couple reasons. Number one, we're occluding our airway with our lips. Also, our vocal folds are engaged, right? Now, when we're doing many screams, not all screams, but when we're doing many, many screams, we don't want our vocal folds to touch. Fry being an exception to this, right? So what's going to happen is if you're not doing a fry scream, your supraglottal tissues, I'm bleeding. My hands are really dry. Your supraglottal tissues are going to come together and they're going to hold the air back for you. Now, that being said, I don't want you to hear hold the air back and then think to yourself, okay, I got to squeeze and hold the air back as much as I can. Generally, any pressure that comes from you holding air back is not very perceptible or shouldn't be very perceptible. For example, if I do this, my vocal folds are technically holding some air back, but I'm not trying to hold air back. I don't feel a buildup of pressure in my throat. So if you're going about this and you're like, okay, I'm going to hold some air back, like you're cruising for a bruising, my friend. You don't want to do that. So if I take this, right, and I switch it with a scream, so normally I'd be here, right? You don't hear a lot of air leaving, but now I'm going to sounds kind of cool, right? Well, I think it sounds kind of cool. So that is a simple exercise that you can do to sort of start playing around with airflow, doing stuff like that. And then that is also a good way to sort of help you if you're trying to learn false chord and you're going the Kargir route. Getting this motion is a good way to understand how to go right, but that's another video. Let's keep going. Yeah, you know, I've never really paid attention to this before, but it sounds like he does most of the nuance on his lows and his mids with airflow control, and embouchure movement, and that's kind of unique. That's kind of unique. A lot of times, especially now, I mean, I say especially now, but it's been this way pretty much the whole time. People tend to do nuance with their mostly. Okay, I'm putting things in a little bit of an unnecessary binary. Let me start this over. Oftentimes, metal vocalists, especially deathcore vocalists, which is its own little genre and subset of vocals, and not the, you know, this might be kind of a hot take, not the defining metric for whether vocals are good or bad. It's doing its own thing. Oftentimes, the majority of the way that nuance is added to vocals is by resonance movement through exaggerated tongue movements. Right. So I can't remember which video I talked about this in, but, you know, we can say a word like, what's a good word? Samsung. That's the brand of this monitor that I'm looking at. Right. And I'm going to do it with a high vocal. Right. We could say Samsung, and I could keep it steady. Samsung. It's cool. It'd be great for some genres, but that's not really going to cut it for deathcore usually, right? And that's not me saying what deathcore should be. That's just me saying what I notice the trends to be. Listen, if you want to do deathcore and you want to do really simple vocals, I'm into it. One of my favorite deathcore bands is Aegean, and those vocals, simple like a piece of sashimi, right? So I could say Samsung. Cool. Or I could say, like, which is me basically Samsung, right? If I put my clean voice through there, Samsung. Or I could say, like, you know, slim. That's cool. So I'm starting here, and I'm kind of like, this is going to sound weird, but I'm kind of licking the back of my teeth. Slim. So I licked the back of my teeth, slim, and then I pushed that into a tunnel. Slim, sing. Right? It sounds kind of cool, right? So oftentimes with deathcore, you're getting a lot of tongue movement. Like, you see people turn their tongue sideways to get certain tones. You see a lot of cool stuff. With him, it sounds like, and okay, this is just one song, so, you know, I'm not commenting on the entirety of his vocal career, but a lot of it is his tongue is in that curled steady shape that we do for a lot of mids, like a guttural but not touching, right? So that's gonna put you in guttural range. Ooh, voice is a little cracky. That's what happens when you don't get a lot of steady sleep. And let's take a quick vocal health conversation. That's what happens when you don't get a lot of sleep. And I'm going to be honest, I've been breaking my rule. I've been drinking some caffeine because my little baby boy is not letting me feel rested. So you're hearing it here. But, you know, this guttural, right? That's the tongue connected. If I disconnect the tongue, it'll have a more roaring tone, which is really common for a lot of mids, right? Right. So it's a lot there, but it's a lot of airflow as well. I'm hoping to hear some more highs because I want to get some thoughts together on those. But overall, bit of an outlier vocal technique wise, and I like that. That clean singing, first of all, the tone was very, very lovely. I like that sort of soft, immersed in twilight, that sort of reserved. Like, you could have belted there, but that's a lot of maximal on maximal on maximal. And sometimes it's good to be a little bit reserved. I will say, here's an example of where we hear a closed mouth slightly working against the tone. Right now, this is a nitpick. This is a split hair. So, you know, if it, like that singing, I think it sounded great. I love it. perfect for the album. I would even say like if he was in the studio and he was like, maybe I should redo it, I'd be like, nah, dude, it's great. Like it's killer. Print money, right? But we can hear a couple times where the tone doesn't sound as wide, right? So if I like have, well, I give the example before, but if I go right there, now not everybody has to sing like a Disney character, right? But just to show you the example, right there versus right there. Right there, immersed in twilight, immersed in twilight, immersed in twilight. See how different the sound was just by opening the pharyngeal space a little bit, just by opening up at the back, giving a little bit of that yawn, right? We heard things kind of open up. Go ahead and listen back. But again, this is a very minor thing. It still sounds killer on the album. And I think it sounds great. The Think Dude did a great job. So it sounds like this is just a speculation. This is nothing more than a speculation, but with the placement of the tone, it sounds like he was, and I don't know if these were like conscious thoughts going through his head at the mic, right? Because like, take it from me, sometimes you get up to the mic and you're like, I just want this to sound cool, and you don't want to overthink it. I get that. Sounds like he was maybe going for more of like a rock or contemporary placement, which, tends to be more forward. And one way I like to have students kind of understand this placement, I don't do a lot of clean singing lessons simply because people mostly come to me for harsh vocals. But every once in a while, I have someone come to me for clean vocals. And, if they're interested in more of a rock tone, right? Or more of a contemporary poppy tone, one thing that I like to do is I like to tell them to imagine seeing like cat poop on their pillow. Like if there was a cat, if they don't have a cat, then it's even weirder. But they come home and there's cat poop or like a hairball on their pillow and they go, that sound, I'm not squeezing down here any extra. I'm not adding any tension to the vocal folds that at least I can perceive, right? That's not my goal. My goal is to utilize my tongue and my mouth shape to sort of tuck the sound up behind my nose. Hey, yeah, whoa, oh, yeah. Hear how that's more forward? Hey, yeah, immersed in twilight. It's brighter, it's more forward, it's got a little bit more weight to it. So I think that that might have been a little bit more what the goal was here. And again, it sounds great. I wouldn't change the take. I think it's phenomenal. Let's keep going. Okay, well, I thought the song was over. My apologies, but also everybody shut up. I want to listen to that one more time. That was dirty. That was tasty. So everybody be quiet. We're gonna listen to that. We're gonna listen to that breakdown again. That was sick. That was good. You can really hear that airflow on that E vowel. You can really hear that airflow coming out on that E. Oh man, that is awesome. So one thing that, I mean, breakdowns have been around for a long time, and it's kind of it can sometimes be hard to find a breakdown that sounds like it's doing something different. And so that really caught me by, I swear I've heard this song before. But for some reason that really caught me off guard. I'll tell you exactly what caught me off guard. Number one, again, those really cool dissonant chords with the ambience. But every once in a while, now listen, I'm not a guitarist, so like I'm happy to be wrong about this. If I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments below. But every once in a while, the chug would bend, right? So it wouldn't just be like brr, it'd be brr or brr, which was just kind of a cool touch. Also, I just love the bright like teeth. I love the teeth that I'm hearing on the guitar tone. Really cool. I also love the tone that Dave is using on his vocals. So it's kind of like this cool, to me, it sounds like this kind of cool hybrid thing. Like it's certainly not like your baseline Fry with just like crackly vocal cord sound. It's also certainly not, your open like, yeah, hey, false chord vocal, right? It's neither of those. It's something else. And oftentimes when this happens, it's a combination of two things, or it's heavily using the supraglottal tissues, which there's a lot going on in there, but you've got your arytenoid cartilages, the flappy bits, the cuneiform cartilages. You've got, it doesn't matter. Lots of stuff in there that can rattle around and does rattle around. It rattles around on a false chord vocal. It can rattle around in a Fry vocal. We can also intentionally bring them together to get them to move in sort of nuanced ways, right? One common example I talk about on this channel, I talk a lot about these tissues, and I think it's because maybe people don't talk about them enough. And I think that they are as huge of a part of metal vocals as false chord, as Fry, is this supraglottal activation, right? But one way that I talk about a lot of the channel is like if I do like this funny orc voice, hey, me big orc, right? You can hear those tissues rattling around. If I remove my voice from the mixture, hey, me big orc, it becomes like a really solid low. With him, again, I think it's like this hybrid thing going on, but I'm gonna try to approximate something similar. I've never really attempted this tone before, so everybody just calm down. Everybody just calm down. We're gonna have some fun. So if I and not like his tone across the whole song, his tone specifically in a couple places in this breakdown. So this isn't me mimicking him in his entirety as a vocalist. Sometimes I make one little sound and people are like, you'll never be this vocalist. And I'm like, I understand how genetics work. But anyways, so I'm here. Yeah, so it's like this lower. So it's a little bit more airy, which makes sense. And instead of like that low feeling, okay. So again, this is just me approximating. He might be doing it totally different, or he may describe it totally differently. But if I was if I was in the studio and somebody said, "Hey, can you mimic that sound?" and I was like, "Oh, now? Okay, I'll try." Right? This is the way that I'd probably go for it in the upper mid approaching high range that he's doing. What I'm doing there is I'm taking a first. Okay, let's dissect my own process here. I'm starting with a breath. Right there, like that. I'm starting with a breath that I can feel closed off up by my tongue, not down by my vocal folds, up by my tongue. And there's that little tiny pop. Now that's not to be confused with a Fry, which would be down here, or right there. This is different, and it feels different. Now, if I leave my actual glottis relaxed, but I lean into that sensation using my abdominal muscles as a gas pedal, kind of creates some cool tones. That kind of feels like, kind of feels like a different vocal I've played around with, but I don't want to get too off track. So anyway, my point is this. It's a really cool tone, and that's my best attempt at it. And I would love to sit down with him and pick his brain so I could learn it as accurately as I could myself. But anyway, the important things to take away, when we're playing around with new tones and when we're trying to kind of do the same thing another vocalist is doing, there are certain foundations that you want to focus on. Number one, you're not squeezing down on your actual vocal folds. If you feel like you're kind of doing this, squeezing on your vocal folds, I don't care what technique it is, you're going the wrong direction. The other is that there's a lot of abdominal activation going on, right? So I'm breathing in. I can't really tilt my camera, but I'm breathing in. My abdominal muscles are still squishy, right? So that I can squeeze on them to lift this sound upward. Hey, hey, hey. Anyways, let's keep going. Blech. And I mean that in a very good way. Blech. There was a lot going on there. So when I talked about, it's mostly airflow and embouchure. Okay, well, there was all the tongue. There was all the tongue manipulation there at the end. My favorite part was when he had this really, really cavernous sound. Something like that. So to get there, rather than trying to focus on specifics, generally speaking, when we're trying to get lower, right? Let me broaden it a little bit. I'm getting distracted because it sounds so cool. Let me talk more foundationally. When we are trying to get lower, our main goal should be to create a lot of space in the mouth and hold on to the sound waves for as long as we can. That's the reason we curl the tongue, right? Because we're kind of creating within the mouth a sort of secondary chamber behind the tongue for the sound to rattle around in. That's the same way tunnels work. Right? That's the same way that tunnels work. We are creating a pocket of air. And this is just one tunnel position, by the way. There are many different ways you can do it. But we're creating a pocket of air for the air to bounce around in. Likewise here. We're creating a pocket of air for the sound to roll around in, right? The longer sound waves stay within a container before they exit, generally the deeper they are. That's why if I was to blow across, like if this was more open and I was to blow across it, I would get a deeper sound than if I was to blow across like, a tiny little like pipette or like a pen cap, right? Because the sound waves are bouncing around and they're getting longer and then exiting. And that sounds really cool. So there was a lot of like tongue sliding back and forth, kind of like a trombone, right? Except it's our tongue. So let me see if I can kind of like, and this is part of the reason why tongue stretches and tongue flexibility is a really important part of your warm-up, because like if you want to get super acrobatic, you're going to have to be able to curl your tongue pretty far back. There have been some screams that I've never done in our music, because if you've ever listened to Kardashev, there's no room for like this level of sludge, but which I'm fine with. But like there are some times when you can really curl your tongue back. And you can get some pretty crazy sounds. Anyway, I'm just honestly at this point, I'm like really tired and kind of delirious, and I'm just riffing. So I'm gonna cut it loose here. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed doing that one. A little bit of a deviation from a lot of like the standard deathcore. I mean, still definitely deathcore, but he does things differently and in a way I enjoy. So if you like the content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot. If you want to hang out with us and listen to some music and chat, hit us up on Patreon. Get some access to our Discord. It's a lot of fun. We got people from all around the big spherical globe that we live on. And that as well. If you're interested in lessons, today was more me just kind of experimenting and having some fun. But if you're interested in lessons, if you're interested in exploring your voice in a healthy and safe way, especially in a way that helps you understand it versus just like, okay, repeat after me. There you go. Check out cardivoxacademy.com. Link in the description below. That's all I got for you. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.